about the future continuous tense, which is also called the future progressive tense. It has two names, but it's only one tense, all right? Now, this class is actually part of a series created by Invid to help you learn the English verb tenses. So the future continuous tense is used by native English speakers quite often, and somehow English students don't know too much about this tense. So this is your chance to learn and understand this tense and to start to use it, because it's really not hard at all. It's actually quite easy. So would you like to begin? Let's do that. So if we look at the board now, you'll understand a little bit more about how this works. The name of this tense that we're learning is future continuous, and that tells you so much. What does it tell you? First, that it's about the future, and second, that it's about something that happens in the future, something that happens after. Now, that continues for some time. It's something that's happening. It's not just something that happens, but it's happening. It continues. It continues for some time. It's in progress, all right? So the name itself gives you a good idea of what this tense is likely to be. Now, let's look at an example so you'll understand very clearly. So I've drawn a timeline here. This is now. Everything before now is the past. We're not learning that right now. Everything after that is the future, and that's what we're looking at. So, let's suppose in the future tomorrow, I will start work at 9 o'clock, and I will finish work at 5 o'clock. When I said I will start, and I said I will finish, that is the future simple tense because it just happens. I start at 9, I finish at 5, right? I cannot keep on starting. So that is the future simple tense. But if I want to say that tomorrow, I will be working from 9 to 5. Now I'm talking about how long I'm working, right? I want to show you that it continues from 9 to 5. So that will be the future continuous tense or future progressive. So here we would say I will be working, right? Let me underline it for you. I will be working from 9 to 5 tomorrow. All right? This is just I will start, I will finish, right? But that one continues. So let's see now, looks very quickly. Look at how it's constructed. Again, very easy. You take any subject, I, you, he, she, we, they, doesn't matter. And you say will be, you have to use this, but you can use this for everyone. Then you take the verb like work and you add I and G. We'll be looking at lots of examples so you understand exactly how that works. But basically, that's it. It's about the future. It continues. Tell us about an action that continues. And it's just with the subject. I will be working. Now, let's look at when we can use the future continuous tense. So, we can use it in different situations. The first one is when something continues in the future for a period of time. That was the example we looked at just now. But let's look at another example. So our team will be attending a conference from March 5th to the 8th. All right? Our team will be attending, right? This is the part that's the future continuous. From March 5th to March 8th is a period of time. All right? And it will continue because they will be there during that entire period. Next, we can also use the future continuous tense when something continues during a particular moment. Okay? So, for example, 230 is a moment, right? But let's suppose you start doing something at 2 o'clock and you finish doing something at 4 o'clock. Then 230 is one of those moments during which you will be doing something. For example, someone asks me or someone asks you, "Can I call you at 230? And you say, "No, sorry, you can't, because at 2:30, I will be taking my English exam." All right? So what does that mean? Let's say the person started taking the exam at 2 o'clock. It's finishing at 4. So 2 230, 3, 3, 3, 3, 4, right? During that entire period, the person will be taking their English exam. Again, will be taking. All right? So it can also be when something continues during a particular moment, but it's not starting and finishing in that moment. It's continuing through that moment. Okay? Next, we can also use it when we're describing different activities or actions that are continuing together at the same time. For example, on Tuesday, Jack will be giving a presentation, and Steve will be meeting a client. So here, we had two parts that use the future continuous. We said, Jack will be giving a presentation, and Steve will be meeting a client. All right? So it doesn't matter. You could say 3 things. For things, 5 things, it doesn't matter. There could be many things that are happening at the same time, and they're continuing at the same time. All right? Next, we also use the present sorry, the future continuous tense to talk about or to ask polite questions. Very often, people who are in the hospitality industry or in customer service use this style. For example, in a hotel, somebody might ask, "Will you be checking in early?" Right? So what they want to know, they could say, "Will you check in early?" But somehow, it's much more polite to use the future continuous tense and to ask, "Will you be checking in early?" All right. Will you be staying for dinner? Will you be attending the wedding? All right. It's just a polite way of asking. So here also, you see the will and the you is there because it's a question. We'll look at that later. Will you be checking in? Okay. All right. And the last part is that very often you will be using this dance because it's talking about the future. You very often will see it being used with a time marker. What do I mean by a time marker? A time marker is just a word or a phrase that tells you when something will happen in the future. In this case, in the future because we're talking about the future. So those words could be tomorrow, next week, next month, next year. Okay? At 9 o'clock on Friday, in the summer, in winter. Okay? So very often you will see the future continuous dance or the future progressive dance. Same thing being used with a time marker. So these are the main ways and times that we use the future continuous dance. Now, let's look at when not to use the future continuous dance because there are certain situations in which we cannot use this dance. So in English, there are 2 kinds of verbs, dynamic verbs and stated verbs. A dynamic verb is an action verb. For example, eat, run, drink, okay? And a stated verb describes a condition or a state or a situation like love, know, understand, and so on. There is a very long list, actually, quite a long list of verbs which are considered in English stated verbs which you need to read through and become familiar with. You can check in any good grammar book and you will find this list of stated verbs. So in the future continuous tense, and actually in any continuous tense, we cannot use stated verbs. You can, in that case, you will not use future continuous. You will have to use future simple. So let's look at a few examples. So stated verbs can be talking about emotional states, mental states, something that you own or possess, or all kinds of other things. Emotional, let's look at an example of that. It would be wrong to say you will be loving this car. In English, we cannot say that. That is not correct because love is a stated verb. So you should be saying instead, you will love this car, which is not future continuous. It is future simple. All right, so you cannot use the future continuous with that word. Next, for certain kinds of mental states, for example, he will be understanding the problem soon. No, that's wrong. You cannot say that. You would need to Use future simple there, and just say he will understand the problem soon. Okay, next. When you're talking about something that you possess, something that you have, something that you own, again, we cannot use the continuous form. So you cannot say she will be having a new computer next month. No, that's wrong. You need to say instead, she will have a new computer next month. All right, good. And then there are all kinds of other words. I'll give you an example. This phone will be costing $50 more next week. That is incorrect because cost is also a stated verb. So instead of that, you would need to say this phone will cost $50 more next week. All right, so pay attention to that. It's really important not to use stated verbs with any of the continuous tenses, including the future continuous tense. Now, let's look at how we form the future continuous tense. So, I've divided the board into 3 parts for a positive or affirmative sentence, a negative sentence, and for a question. Okay, so let's look at how we form each part. If it's a positive sentence, you just take any subject and you add to it will be working. For example, I will be working. You will be working. We will be working. They will be working. You can repeat these after me. It's good practice. You'll get used to it. He will be working. She will be working. It will be working. Okay, it is for things like, let's say, a computer. Okay, next. If it's negative, we're basically just adding the word not. If you are trying to be a little bit formal. So, if you're being formal, then we would say, I will not be working. But most of the time in regular conversation, we don't say, I will not be working. We use the contraction or short form and we say, I won't be working on Sunday. So won't is what we use instead of will not. Say it after me, so you get the pronunciation of won't properly. All right, I won't be working. You won't. He won't. She won't. Okay, so make sure that you're saying won't properly. And the full form is they won't be working. He won't be working. She won't be working. It won't be working. All right, good. That's the negative. And now for the question. What happens with the question? As in many of the tenses, we have to change the order of the words. So instead of saying, I will be working, we say, will I be working? Say it after me. Will you be working? Will we be working? Let's say on Sunday or whatever. Will they be working? Will he be working? Will she be working? Will it be working? All right, that's it. So basically this will be won't be, will you be? This is the core of it. All right, and once you know that, you know the whole tense, then basically you're taking any verb like work and adding ing. So we could say, I will be working. I'll be watching this movie tonight. I'll be sleeping. I'll be studying. I'll be learning English. Okay, whatever. Just take the base form of the verb and add ing, and you're fine. All right. Now, if you want to add any question words, what are the question words? Who, what, when, where, why, how, and so on. Then you just put that question word right before this part. For example, when will you be working? Where will they be working? How long will he be working? All right, so you can take any of those question words or phrases and add them just before this, but keep the rest of the structure exactly the same as the regular question. And that's how you form the future continuous tense. Now, let's look at how we form and pronounce contractions in the future continuous tense. So, for example, I will be becomes I'll be. Say it after me. Okay. I'll be, you'll be, will be, they'll be, he'll be, she'll be, it'll be. Now this last one, it'll be, isn't used very much, so you don't have to use that. We usually say it will be because it's a little hard to say it and it's very unusual. All right. Now let's make some sentences. Okay, or parts of sentences with this. I'll be living in New York. You'll be meeting the boss. We'll be shopping. They'll be playing. He'll be sleeping. She'll be doing her homework. It'll be working by then. Those are the positive ones. If it's negative, I will not be becomes what? You know I won't be. Say it after me, I won't be. And of course, you can do that for all of them. I won't be, you won't be, he won't be, and so on. And then you add a verb plus the ing. For example, I won't be working. All right. And you won't be making any mistakes in the pronunciation of these contractions. Now, let's look at some of the spelling changes we need to make when we're using the future continuous tense. So for most verbs, you don't need to make too many changes. All you have to do is just add ing. For example, help becomes helping, doing. All we did was add ing. Now, for verbs that end with an e, what you have to do is to drop the e and add ing. For example, the verb write to write becomes writing. To bake becomes baking. All right. So if there is an e, we would drop it like dancing, dancing like that. Okay. Next, for verbs that end with ie. Okay. Then what we do, you have to make a few more changes. You change the e to ay. For example, the verb lie becomes lying. Tie, tying. All right. And then last, for verbs that end with a c, v, c. What is c, v, c? C stands for consonant, and v stands for vowel. A vowel in English is a, e, I, o, u, and every other letter in English is a consonant. So if you look at the verb, let's look at this one and you'll understand, and you look at it from the end. If the last letter is a consonant and then you have a vowel and then you have a consonant, then you double the last letter and then add ing. So the verb begin becomes beginning. The verb get, again, c, v, c, right? Get becomes getting or getting and sit, sitting. Okay. So these are the main kinds of spelling changes you need to make when you're writing with the future continuous tense. Now, let's look at how to give short answers using the future continuous tense. What do I mean by short answers? When someone asks a question, usually when we answer, we don't have to repeat everything that they've said. So we say something like this. If the question is, will Jack be working with you tomorrow? Let's say. So you could say, yes, he will, or no, he won't. So if it's positive, you just take this from here and bring it here. Okay. Yes, he will. Here, we cannot use a contraction. You cannot shorten it. Don't say, yes, he will. No. Okay. Yes, he will, or no, he won't. Let's look at another example. Will they be announcing the winners today? So what do? Yes, they will, or no, they won't. Say it after me. Yes, they will. No, they won't. Good. Again, no contraction possible. And let's take one more. Will you be attending the lecture? So, we could say, what? Yes, I will, or no, I won't. That's it. So, once you know that someone asks you a question like that, which starts with the will in the future continuous, you can answer it with, yes, I will, no, I won't. All right. So, if I ask you, will you be eating dinner later? You could say, whichever one applies to you. Yes, I will, or no, I won't. Now, let's do some practice exercises with the future continuous tense. So, we have some positive sentences to make, some negative, and some questions. Okay. So, let's start with the first one. So, here, first, it has something written in the future simple, and we will be changing it to the future continuous. So I will learn. How do we change that into the future continuous? It should be, I will be learning. Okay. I will be learning. They will sell becomes what? In future continuous, they will be selling. I will be learning. They will be selling. Okay. Good. Now let's take some sentences, which already are in the future continuous tense, and make them negative. The first sentence, we will be taking the train. Let's make this one negative in a formal way. So, what word can you add? And where do you add it to make this negative? We would say, we will not be taking the train. We will not be taking the train. Okay. It comes after will not. Now, let's make this one negative, but in an informal way. It says, right now he will be staying at a hotel. How do we make that negative? Over here, this part. So it becomes he won't. Okay. Instead of, well, he won't be staying at a hotel. All right. Good. Now let's make some questions. Number 5, Robert will be calling at 4 o'clock. So you need to make a question that starts with what time? What will it be? What time? Will Robert be calling? Okay. Because if we didn't have this question word or question phrase, the question would just be, will Robert be calling? But if we add the question phrase, we still keep that same structure. We're just adding the question word or question phrase. What time will Robert be calling? Okay, good. Number 6, Donna will be teaching from 7 to 8 p.m. So now you want to ask a question that starts with when. So how do we form it? When will Donna be teaching? Right? Because again, if we didn't have the question word, this would become, will Donna be teaching? But with the question word, when will Donna be teaching? What will Donna be teaching? How long will Donna be teaching? And so on. Okay, so this is a little bit of review of what we've been studying so far in the future continuous tense. Now let's look at some common mistakes that are made when using the future continuous tense and see how we can avoid them and correct them. So, sometimes the mistake is made with the tense itself. The wrong tense is being used. So, let's suppose that somebody asks you, could you call me at 8 o'clock today? And you say, no, I can't call it 8, as I will travel then. So, that's incorrect, because it should not be, I will travel, which is future simple because travel is continuous. So here you could actually use the future continuous tense, right? So you should say, I will be traveling then. Okay. I can't call it 8 as I'll be traveling then. Traveling, by the way, is one of those words that could be used and written with a double L here, or without a double L. Both are correct. All right. Spelling. Sometimes the mistake is a spelling error. For example, see if you can find the mistake here, and see if you can correct it. She'll be taking a vacation. Now, when I say it, it sounds just fine. But look at the spelling here. How can we fix that? Remember what we do? If the verb ends with an E, we need to cancel the E before we add I and G. So, it should look like this. Okay. Good. Or let's look at another spelling mistake. We'll be swimming in the sea. So here is the mistake. This was an example of one of those consonant, vowel, consonant, right? Swim is like that. So we need to do what? Double the last letter. We'll be swimming in the sea. All right? Good. Next, sometimes the mistake is made with a short answer. So somebody said, will you be going on holiday? And the person answered, yes, I'll. Well, we can't do that because we learned that when we give the positive short answer, We can't contract it, right? We cannot contract
it.
So you need to say, yes, I will. All right? We can only contract it in the negative form. We could say, no, I won't. But, yes, I will. Very good. Now, sometimes mistakes are actually very often. Mistakes are made when framing questions, because we have to change the order of questions, the order of the words in the question. Sometimes that can be a little bit confusing. So, always pay more attention to a question, all right? And make sure that you've got that order right. So, this person said, when they will be fixing the car. That's incorrect. How can we fix it? It should be, when will they be fixing the car?
Why?
Because right now, this is just a sentence. They will be fixing the car. But when we make it a question, we have to change the order, right? Will they be fixing the car? When will they be fixing the car, right? So remember that it's really important with the questions, okay? Be careful that that mistake doesn't happen to you. And the last one is, of course, with those state verbs. Remember that there's all those verbs that you cannot use in a continuous form at all. So this person said, or sorry here, this one says, soon you will be knowing the future continuous tense. Well, that's wonderful, but there's a mistake in it. And the mistake is the state of verb, right? We cannot say you will be knowing. So there, we would just have to make it future simple. Soon you will know the future continuous tense. And you will not make these kind of mistakes. You will speak clearly and confidently. So, to review, you have learned the future continuous tense, when you know when to use it, which we learned, and also how to use it, which we did practice a lot of together. So, in other words, by now, you should feel comfortable doing this, making a positive sentence, a negative sentence, and a question using the future continuous tense. For example, you should be able to say, easily, she will be visiting Italy next year. Or, she won't be visiting Italy next year. Or, will she be visiting Italy next year? Okay? And when you can do that easily and comfortably without worrying, without stressing out, without making mistakes, then you have mastered this tense. And, of course, also, you should be able to add those question words such as, when will she be visiting Italy? How often will she be visiting Italy? Right? You should be able to do that as well. So, where do you go from here? It's like this. By doing the future continuous tense. If you've been doing this series with us, this is the last of the basic tenses. Okay? You will probably have finished about 6 tenses, and this is the 6th one, the future continuous tense. If you feel that you're ready, then please move on to the next one, because the next tense is the present perfect tense. And with those perfect tenses, you move to the advanced level and you start doing those advanced tenses, which are excellent to use. However, if you're not ready for that, that's perfectly fine. If you want to feel more confident and just go over it a little bit more, go back over these tenses, you could start at the beginning. Go through them. Go through them one by one. Fill in any doubts and questions that you have in your mind. Do a little more practice. Watch the lessons. Make notes. Write the answers. And also, sometimes just leave it on. Listen to it, right? Let it go through your head. You can hear me saying, go back to the base form of the verb. This is the short answer. And eventually that voice. My voice will become your voice in your mind. And the answers will come to you as you're speaking, as you're writing, and so on. Okay? But of course, if you're ready and you'd like to move forward, then please watch the next tense in this series, which is the present perfect tense. All right? And last of all, if you'd like a little more practice in this particular tense, the future continuous tense, please go to INVID, where you can do a quiz on this. And congratulations once again on learning all of these wonderful tenses, which will allow you to speak in so much more of a confident, fluent manner. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the advanced tenses in English. Now, if you've been following our InVid series on English tenses, you may have already seen this board. And then you will know that here we have all 12 of the active tenses in English. Probably, if you're watching this lesson, you have already learned the basic tenses, the first 6. Now you're ready to move on to the advanced tenses, which are the perfect tenses. And it doesn't matter if you know the names of these tenses or not, or if you understand the examples that I'm going to read in a second. But as we go along, you will learn each one step by step. How to use it, when to use it, just like you did up here. But let's get a quick idea of what's coming up. So here, we will learn present perfect continuous, past perfect continuous, future perfect continuous. What do you notice? Okay, again, we have a pattern, we have the perfect, and then we have the continuous form of it. All right, so now let's look at a little example of each one. I have worked, I have been working. I had worked, I had been working, I will have worked, I will have been working. Yes, believe it or not. By the end of this program, you will understand and be able to use tenses like this. That will help you not only to express yourself more effectively, whether it's for academic purposes or in a business context or just in general English, but also to understand exactly what people mean when they're using these different tenses around you. Okay, now the best part is that many of the rules that you learned up here with the basic tenses will help you when you learn the advanced tenses, because you will see there are continuous forms throughout. For example, and also here many of the verb forms are the same. What is a little bit different is that here we will be using the verb, the helping verb to have, and here the helping verb to have, plus the helping verb to be in a special way, which you will learn. So don't worry about anything. We're going to go forward step by step. And all you have to do now is go on to watch the next video in this series, which is on the present perfect tense. Welcome to this class on the present perfect tense. This class is part of a series created by InVid to help you learn and master the different verb tenses in English. Okay, so now the present perfect tense is the first of the advanced tenses. It's advanced not only in terms of the grammar, but also in terms of the way that we think about time when we use this tense, and I'm going to explain to you all about that. Now, by using this tense, you will definitely be able to speak and write at a much higher level in English, whether it's for social situations or business, or in an academic environment. The present perfect tense will allow you to communicate in a much more advanced way. So are you ready to level up? Let's get started. So the present perfect tense connects the present with the past. Okay, it's not just about the present or the past. It links and connects the present and the past. How does it do that? This tense shows us that an action in the past has a result in the present or an effect in the present. That means that something that happened before now has an effect or a result on something now. So there's that connection between past and present in the present perfect tense. Now, it is different, therefore, from some of the tenses that you've learned before. For example, you had learned, probably if you've been going step by step, you had learned the past simple, right? So let's look now at an example to show you how the past simple is different from this present perfect. So in the past simple, I could say, I lost my book, right? So the verb here, the past tense verb, is what? Lost. I lost my book. Or I could say to you in present perfect, I have lost my book. I have lost my book. Here, have lost is present perfect. So, is there a difference between saying I lost my book and I have lost my book? In English, there is. Sometimes people use it almost in the same way, but actually it's different. So, if I say to you, I lost my book, maybe I lost my book on Monday, but then I found it on Tuesday. So, if you say just, I lost my book, it doesn't mean that that is true today.
It means it was true in the past.
But if you tell me, I've lost my book, I have lost my book means what happened in the past is still true now, and my book is still lost. Okay? Because maybe here you lost it on Monday, you found it on Tuesday, and it's not true anymore. But when you say, I have lost, it means you lost it at some time in the past. We don't know when exactly, and it doesn't matter because what matters is the results. And the results here, in this example, is that I
don't have my book now.
Okay? See that difference? So this tense allows you to take something from the past, bring it into the present, and make it true now. That's one of the most common ways in which we use the present perfect, and we'll also be looking at some other ways while we go through this class. All right? So, how does it actually look when we use it? This is just a quick overview of that. We'll go into detail. So, to construct a sentence in the present perfect, we take the subject, we take the helping verb have, the verb to have. We have to use that, and then we take a regular verb or an irregular verb, and we have to use the third form, or the past participle.
Don't worry about that right now.
It's not hard. You can learn it. Okay? I'll give you an example. These are just example verbs. Okay? I have worked. I have worked in this company for 5 years. You have worked. We have worked. They have worked. Or, if we give an example with an irregular verb like the verb to do, we could say he has done his homework. That means he did his homework and it's still done. It's still finished. She has done her homework. It has done the job. Okay? So, this is a quick overview of it. We're going to now learn exactly when to use this tense. We use the present perfect in different situations. Let's look at what they are. So, the first one, we can use it to talk about something that happened in the past, and it's still true now. Okay? We looked at an example of this before. For example, we could say, I have seen that movie. So, if somebody asked you, would you like to watch this movie, and you say, no, it's okay.
I have seen it.
So you saw it, and it's still true that you have seen it. So have seen is the present perfect part of that. Or I have found my keys. Have found means you found them, and it's still true. And you don't need to look for your keys anymore, because now you have found them. All right?
Good.
Next, we can talk about the past for a finished action using the present perfect. For example, you could say, I have finished my homework. All right? I have finished my homework means I don't need to work on it anymore. It's done. It's over. All right? Or you could say, I have cooked dinner. That means dinner is ready. I don't have to spend any more time cooking. I have cooked it. It's finished. It's over. All right? So we can use it to talk about actions that finished in the past, and they're still true. Or sometimes you will hear people using it to talk about something that happened in the past, but it's not finished. For example, and these are actually the most common examples of this situation. Somebody could say, I have worked here for 5 years. What does that mean? I started to work here 5 years ago, and I still work here. Okay? So I have worked. All right? Or, I have lived here since 2012.
Have lived.
So I started to live here in 2012 and I still live here. Okay? It's still true. It's still relevant. So we can use present perfect for that. And it's not a finished action because in this case, I still work here. I still live here. Okay?
Good.
Next, we can use it to talk about something that happened in the recent past. It means not very long ago, just a short time ago, maybe a minute ago, or maybe a short time ago. And it has some kind of effect or result now. Let's look at an example. Suppose somebody says, "Would you like to go for lunch?" And you say, "Oh, that's too bad. I have just eaten lunch." Okay? I have eaten. The word just kind of emphasizes that recent part a little bit. I have eaten lunch. So what does that mean? What's the result? Well, I don't need to go for lunch again, right?
With you. So that's when you would say something like that.
Or if someone says, "Oh, wait, don't send that email." But you say, "Oh, no, I have just sent the email." Have sent. So maybe it just happened. In the recent past again. And it already happened. And it's still true that it happened. Okay?
So we can use it like that.
And we can also use it for things that happened in the past, but they happened often. They happened repeatedly or repetitively. Okay? They happened again and again. So you could say, for example, I have shopped here for many years. Have shopped. Okay? It didn't mean that you kept shopping for years. No, but at different times. Over the years, you shopped. You have shopped in that particular shop, store or mall, or something else. Okay? So you can also use it for these kind of repetitive or repeated actions. So these are some situations in which you can use the present perfect tense. Another way to understand when to use the present perfect tense is to look at some of the common words and expressions that we use with this tense. Okay? So let's do that. So I've divided the board here between some words and expressions that describe things or actions that already finished and some that have not finished, that are still continuing. For example, the first one, I have already read that book. So let's look at this here. I have read is the present perfect and the word is already. Okay? So when we say I have already done something, means I did it in the past and it's still true. Because if I already read that book, then I already know what is in that book, right? It's still true now. That's that connection between past and present. Another example of a finished action in the past that's still true now. Our team has just won the game. So here we have has just won. The word is just. So sometimes we can refer to an action in the past that happened very recently with the word just. Our team has just won. Okay? Maybe it just happened. All right? But it's still true now. So it's part of present perfect. Now, let's look at a few other kinds of examples. She has worked here for 3 months. So has worked is the present perfect and the word which we can use often with. It is the word for. Okay? She has worked here for 3 months. Let's look at another example and then I'll show you the difference between for and something else. The next one says, she has worked here since January. Okay? So here again has worked is the present perfect and since is the word you can use with the present perfect. So what's the difference between saying she's worked here for 3 months or since January? Do you remember? So for should always be used with a period of time, right? How long? And since is used with the point in time when something began. All right? So let's suppose that she started in January. Now it's March. So we can say she's worked here for 3 months. It's the end of March. Okay? So since plus the point when something started, and for plus the length of time or the period of time that something lasted. So we can use those two words with present perfect. Next, the flight has not arrived yet. So this is a negative sentence, but it doesn't matter. Has not arrived is the present perfect. Has arrived. Has not arrived. And the word we can use is yet. This is unfinished because yet means till now. Till this moment, from the past till. This moment it has not arrived. So we can say that our flight has not arrived yet. Okay? You can use that for lots of things. The pizza hasn't arrived yet. John hasn't arrived yet. It means till now. Next, have you ever been to Italy? Okay? So now we're talking about in all your life till now and including now. Have you ever been means have you ever visited Italy? Okay? So the present perfect can include all of the past, all of your life until now. So it could be here. Have you been? And the word is ever. So a lot of times we can ask these kind of questions, and when you're asking these kind of questions, you're using present perfect. Have you ever done this? Have you ever been there? Have you ever seen that movie? And so on and so forth. Okay. Next, he has never eaten sushi. So this is kind of the flip of have you ever? It's the negative version, right? He has eaten, and here we're making it negative. He has never eaten. What does that mean? In all of his life in the past till now, and including now, he has not eaten sushi. Okay? And the last one, how long have you known each other? Okay? Have you known? Right? Present perfect. Have known. And this is the phrase that you can use with it. How long have you known each other? So you could say what? We have known each other for many years, or you could say we have known each other since plus a particular year, since 2015. Okay? So these are some of the common words and expressions you can use with the present perfect tense. Now, let's look at when not to use the present perfect tense. Okay? So you cannot use the present perfect tense with any kind of finished time expression. What does that mean? What is the finished time expression? For example, words like yesterday, last week, last month, last year in the 1960s. These are all times that are finished and over, right? We cannot use present perfect with any of those expressions if you have a sentence or you have a question. Okay? But you can use the present perfect with an unfinished time expression or with no time expression. Okay? Let me explain. For example, what do I mean by an unfinished time? An unfinished time would be like today. Today is not over, right? So it's considered in English an unfinished time expression, or this week. It's not over. This month, it's not over. This year, it's not over, or in my life. It's not over, right? So, if you're talking about something like that, an unfinished time, then yes, you can use present perfect, or you can just use present perfect and use no time expression. All right? So, if your sentence or question doesn't have any time expression, that's fine. Because this tense, we're focusing more on the results of the action, not when something happened. If you need to tell me or ask me when something happened, then you need to go to another tense, which is the past simple tense. Okay? But with unfinished time or no time, you can use present perfect. So let's look at some examples to understand exactly. It's really very easy. So in the past, simple with a finished time expression, we would say something like this. I spoke to him 3 times last week. Okay? Now last week, right? It's over. It's finished. It's a finished time expression. So here I had to use I spoke, and I spoke is the past simple. It's not the present perfect, right? So if I have to say last week, then I have to go back to just using past simple. But here I could say, I have spoken to him 3 times this week. Now, this week we said is what? It's an unfinished time. And I've spoken. I have spoken is present perfect. It's perfectly fine to use it because it's an unfinished time this week. All right? See the difference? As soon as you use the finished time, then use past simple. If you're using the unfinished time or no time, use present perfect. Let's check another example. Here, somebody asks, when did you meet John? So this word when, right? Very critical word in this tense because as soon as you see that word, you can't use present perfect because as somebody says, when did you meet John? You're going to talk about a time in the past, even if that time was 1 minute ago or 10 years ago. So if you use the word when in your question, then again, use past simple. Do not use present perfect. But what question words can we use with present perfect? We could say, for example, how long have you known John? Right? How long is okay, because how long is talking about its time that started in the past. And it's still true now, it still counts includes now. So that's fine. That's like an unfinished time. So that would be okay. Here we can use present perfect. All right? Let's take another example. When did you visit Spain? Again, that word, right? When? And that would have to be past simple immediately. Because let's say I visited Spain last year. In 2015, whatever. But it's going to be, I'm going to tell you an answer which is finished. It's over. Right? But you could say, have you ever visited Spain? That's okay. Why? Because have you ever is an unfinished time. It means what does have you ever mean? It means at any time in your life. Till now and including now, have you ever visited Spain? So that question would be okay. So you see, it's really important to know when to use the present perfect, but also when not to use it with finished time expressions. Now, let's look at how we form the present perfect tense first with regular verbs. So, what's a regular verb? A regular verb is one where when we put it into the past tense, we usually add only ed or just d or sometimes ied. Okay? We're going to look at some examples. So don't worry. You'll understand exactly. The basic structure of using the present perfect is like this. We use the subject, which is I, you, we, they, etc. Then we use the helping verb have or has. And then we have to use what's called the past participle. The past participle is just what I mentioned before. It's the past tense form of the regular verb. So let's look at an example so you understand really, really well. So I've divided the board into 3 parts. Positive sentences, negative sentences, and questions. So let's go through it step by step. So with these subjects, we use have, and with these subjects, we're going to use has. Let's see how it works. I have worked. You have worked. We have worked. They have worked. Okay? Just like we always say, I have, you have, we have, they have. We have to keep using that, and we add, let's say, our sample verb to work, and then all we're doing to make the past participle of that was we added that ed form. Okay? So I have worked. All right? That's the first part. With he, she, and it changes because even when we just use have, we don't say he, have, we. Say he has worked, she has worked, and it has worked. Okay? So this is different. So be careful of that not to make that mistake. Next, let's see what happens when we make all of these negative. So I have not worked. You have not worked. We have not worked. They have not worked, or you can contract it or shorten the have not and make it into haven't. Say it after me, haven't. Okay? That's the contraction. Basically, what did we do? We took these two words have not. We canceled the O right, and then we joined them together and put an apostrophe where we took out the O. Alright? So you could say we haven't worked. Now, let's look at what happens here. Basically, we're adding not. So he has worked, and the negative becomes what? He has not worked. She has not worked. It has not worked, or more often in conversation we just say, he hasn't worked.
Say it after me.
Hasn't. Hasn't. There is an S, but it sounds a little bit more like a Z sound. Hasn't. Okay? She hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. Good. Next for the questions. So in questions, we have to change the order. So instead of saying I have, we say have I. Instead of you have you. Okay? That's all. Have I worked today? I don't know. I don't remember. Have you worked this week? Have we worked? Have they worked? Okay? So the same have which we're using all down the line, and here what do we need to use?
Has.
Has he worked this week? Has she worked today? Has it worked? Okay?
So that's basically it.
Now you're looking at the whole structure of the present perfect tense in the positive sentence, the negative, and the question. Now, if you want to add a question word like who, what, where, why, we cannot say, when, but we can say. Those other ones, then you could add those here. For example, you could say where have you worked this week, right? So, if you need to add a question word but not the question word, when if you need to add a question word, you put it before the structure. But keep that same form. Where have you worked? Who have you worked with? Okay? That's basically
it.
So when you can make a sentence, a positive sentence, a negative sentence, and a question, then you can use this tense.
Now to show you that,
let's do one more example. This time let's use the verb to call. Okay? That's our base verb. It's a regular verb. How do we make it into a past participle? Today I call, yesterday I called, right? Called with addition. So we could say they have called, right? I'm not going to write it every time, but just for you to see it. They have called. Let's use this. They haven't called. Let's ask a question. Have they called? Okay? Good. Now here we would say he has called. He hasn't called. Has he called today? That's it. Basically, you can work it through with any regular verb just like this. Now, let's look at how we form the present perfect tense with irregular verbs. So basically, it's exactly the same as what you learned for the regular verbs. There's only one difference, which I will tell you about. So the structure is the same. You have your subject, are you, we, they. We have the helping verb, have or has, and we have the past participle. The only thing is the past participle of irregular verbs is something that you have to learn, because sometimes it's completely different from the base form of the verb. Sometimes it's a little bit different, and sometimes it doesn't change at all, which is why it's irregular. So let's start with this example verb, the verb to go. All right? So the verb to go, the first form and the base form is to go, go. In the past, it becomes went. Today I go, or every day I go, yesterday I went, but I have gone. The third form is what we need to use in this perfect tense. All right? So, a positive sentence. I have gone. You have gone. We have gone. They have gone. But he has gone. She has gone. It has gone. Okay? The same structure as we use for the regular verbs, except that this past participle is basically going to be different. All right? And different, quite different. Negative? I haven't gone. You haven't gone. We haven't gone. They haven't gone. He hasn't gone. She hasn't gone. It hasn't gone. Okay? And again the question. Change the order. Have I gone to England? I don't remember. Okay? Have you gone? Have we gone? Have they gone? Has he gone? Has she gone? Has it gone? Okay? Or has it gone out? Let's say we're talking about the light. Okay? All right. So that's basically what you do with the irregular verbs. It's very, very similar to the regular verbs except for the past participle part. So with the irregular verbs, you do have to learn them by heart. Usually at the end of most grammar books, they have an appendix. They have a section where they have a list of the most common irregular verbs in 3 forms and that past participle. The third form is what you need to use and learn. To use the present perfect tense, sometimes the verb will change completely like this go went gone. Some of the verbs change like meet the verb to meet. The regular is meet, the past is met, and the past participle is also met. So I have met. Okay? Or sometimes you have a verb like the verb to put. It's irregular because it doesn't change at all. I put this here today. I put this here yesterday. And I have put this here every day of my life. Okay? So that one is irregular because it changes like that. And another thing to keep in mind is, sometimes the verb that you want to use here is the verb to have. Okay? Yes, we can have this kind of weird sentences in English. So then it would be what? So have becomes had. Okay? In the past participle form. So what would we say here? We would say I have had. I've had a wonderful time. He has had a wonderful time. He hasn't, I haven't had same thing. Okay?
He hasn't had.
Have you had? Or has he had, let's say, has he had lunch? Have you had breakfast? Okay? So it might sound a little weird to you to hear somebody saying have you had? But yes, we can say I have had. He has had because the verb we're using is to have. Sometimes it's that, and sometimes it's go, and sometimes it's work, and sometimes it's something else. But don't be surprised if you see so much of the verb to have. Okay? All right. So that's how you form the irregular verbs in the present perfect tense. Now, let's look at how we form and pronounce contractions in the present perfect tense. So, let's start with this one. I have, when we shorten it or contract it, it becomes I've. Say it after me, I've. So, if it was with a verb, it would be something like I've worked. Okay? But we're just going to practice this part for now because this is the part that sometimes students have a little bit of difficulty with, especially trying to figure out the pronunciation. So, along with paying attention to the spelling, pay attention to the pronunciation. So, in terms of spelling, what happened here? How do we go from this to this? We basically canceled this part, added the apostrophe where we took out some letters, and then we joined these two parts. So, I have became I've, you have, you've, we have, we've. Okay? I'm saying AV sound, we've, we've. They have, they've.
Good.
He is becomes he's. What happened here? We took this out, right?
We put the apostrophe in its
place and we joined those two parts.
He's.
She has becomes.
She's.
It has becomes.
It's.
Now, I want to point out something important here. Now, when we say he's, yes, he's is the contraction for he has, but by itself, he's can be a few different things. Let's look at what they are.
He's could be. He is.
Because the contraction of he is also. He's like he is a doctor, becomes he's a doctor. And he's can also be again, he is when he is being used as a helping verb with present continuous, as in a sentence like he is studying. So this sentence could also be written as he's studying. Okay? Or he's can be the way we're doing it here, the way we're using it here. He's can be he has as in the present perfect tense. He has taken a taxi. So when you see he's by itself, it could be he is or he has. So how do you know? You know based on what follows it. And if it's something like this, then it will be he is or he is studying. But here, based on if there is a past participle verb after, that he has worked, he has called, he has taken, he has gone, then we know that this he stands for he has. All right? Good. Now, let's look at the negative form. I have becomes I haven't. Now, what's really important here is you need to pronounce the last part in a way that people can hear it. Because if you say it really fast and you kind of say it much softer at the end, people won't hear that, and then the meaning will be different. So make sure you're saying all parts of it at equal volume. I haven't. You haven't. We haven't. They haven't. He hasn't.
She hasn't. It hasn't.
Okay? That was the pronunciation and the spelling of the negative form. So, how did we achieve that spelling? So, basically, what did we take out here? We took out the O, right? And there we put the apostrophe. The have and the have not came together and became haven't. And the same with hasn't. All right? Again, the not. We took out the O and it became hasn't. So pay attention to your spelling, and once you understand where that apostrophe goes, you won't be guessing and you won't make mistakes, because you'll know it's meant to go wherever there is a missing letter or a few missing letters. All right? And these are also the correct pronunciation ways for these contractions. Now, let's look at how to answer yes or no questions, or to give short answers using the present perfect tense. Because when somebody asks you a question, you don't have to give the full answer by repeating everything they said. You just give what's called a short answer. So this is how we do it. So if someone says, have you visited New York? You're going to have either a yes or no answer, right? So you would say, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. Now, the two things to keep in mind, it's really easy to know how to make those short answers. You just take the have from the question, and you add it here. Yes, I have, and for the positive answer, we cannot contract it. There's no contraction possible. All right? You have to say it in full. But for the negative, you can use the contraction by itself. So yes, I have, or no, I haven't.
Good.
Here the question is, has she had dinner? Remember I told you that sometimes the verb itself is have, and then we use the past participle of have. So has she had dinner? You could answer, yes, she has, right? Take the question. The word from the question itself, it will help you to answer. Yes, she has, or no, she hasn't, right? Again, it comes here as well as here. All right? So in all cases, you're just taking that answer. You're forming that answer from the question itself. The mistake that some students make is when someone says, have you visited New York? They might answer, yes, I visited. It's not really the right answer there. You should be saying, yes, I have, or no, I haven't. So let's do a little practice. For example, have they left already? Yes, they have. Yes, they have. Or no, they haven't.
Good.
Okay, just like here. Let's try another one. Has he bought a car? Yes, he has. Okay, we're getting it from here, or no, he hasn't.
Good.
Now a question for you. Have you understood this tense? You could say, yes, I have, and we're not going to say the second one because I hope you have. All right, that's how you give short answers. Yes, I have. Now are you ready to practice what you've learned? Let's do it. So we have some positive sentences, some negative sentences, and a few questions. All right? So I've written the verb here, the regular verb, and in some cases some other information, and what you're going to do is you're going to change them all into the present perfect. So first we'll just read it, and then we'll go back and change it. He developed a new app. So how would we change that to the present perfect? He has developed a new app. Okay, that's with an E.
D. There.
He has developed a new app. All right, good. We be to London. The verb to be. All right. So what does that become in the present perfect? What is the past participle? I am, I was, I have something. So here it will be we. Have, and then the past participle of the verb to be is been. Okay? We have been, and even though it's written with two E's, we still say it pretty short. We have been to London. Okay? We have been to London means we went there, and we have come back. It doesn't mean that we're there now. That is, we have gone to London. Okay? He or they have gone to London means they went there, and they're still there. But if you say they have been to London, it means they're back now, but that's where they were, and now they're here. That's a little bit of a difference between the verb to be and the verb to go. Okay? Be careful of that one.
All right.
Now, number 3. She give me an answer. Now, what we want to do, we want to make it present perfect, but we want to make it negative. So what would that be? Yes, you can give me the contraction. Hasn't, right? She hasn't given. She hasn't given me an answer. Okay? Good. Next they sign, right? Sign the contract. Make it negative. They haven't signed. They haven't signed the contract, right? This was a regular verb, so it became signed. This was an irregular verb, give became given. Be irregular verb became been, and develop. Regular verb became developed. All right? Good. You're doing really well. Now, let's make some questions. So right now the information we have is they make a decision. How would we turn that into the present perfect? We would say, okay. Have what? Have they made? Have they made a decision? All right. Make another very popular and commonly used irregular verb, right? Make becomes made. Have they made a decision? Next. He take his medicine. So what will that be? Think about it.
What do we start with?
Not have, but it's he, so we have to start with. Has he take becomes what?
Taken, right?
Has he taken his medicine? Okay.
Good.
And the last one, you do your homework? What would we do with that? How would we change it? What do we have to say? Have, or has to start for you. Have, right?
Have you?
What does do become here? What's the past participle? Have you done? Have you done your homework? All right. Because do was an irregular verb became done. Take also an irregular verb became taken, and make became made. All right? So as I said, with the irregular verbs, you need to learn what that form is. But once you know it, you know it. And probably a lot of the most common ones, you hear them all the time. So just pay attention to what's happening around you. Listen, pay attention when you're reading, and you will learn them kind of naturally. Okay? And then you can always go through the list, and you can particularly focus on the ones which you're not sure of. Okay? But this is a really good review exercise. If you went through it really well, congratulations. Now, let's look at some common mistakes that are sometimes made while using the present perfect tense. All right. So the first 3 have to do with the verb itself. So let's look at what they are and see what kind of mistakes students sometimes make. So the first one, he have won the prize. So what's the mistake there? What mistake did the student make? It should be not he have won, but he has won. So here the wrong helping verb was used. Okay? So be careful of always matching the helping verb with your subject. He, she, it has. I, you, they have. All right?
Good.
Number 2, this student wrote she been to Paris. That's wrong. What's missing? How can we fix it? It should be she has been to Paris. So here the student wrote the subject. They wrote the past participle, but they forgot the helping verb, and we need that helping verb with the past with the present perfect tense. Okay? Next. Number 3, this student wrote. They have saw the movie. What's the mistake there? We have the subject. We have the helping verb, but the mistake is here. It's incorrect. This is only the past simple form. We need the past participle, which should be they have seen the movie. Okay? So we can have mistakes with verbs in different places. So be careful of that. Okay? That's what I'm trying to show you here. Sometimes it's the past participle. Sometimes it's in the helping verb, and sometimes it's the form of the helping verb. Okay? So pay attention to that entire package. All right? Next. Sometimes we have mistakes in questions. All right? Questions are always a little bit confusing in English because we have to change the order and all of that. But as long as you're thinking, think of your chart, think of the order, you can definitely get it right. Okay? So let's look at these mistakes. Have you ever fly in first class? So what did that student want to say? Have you ever flown? Okay? So the mistake here was in that past participle. Again. All right? Next. This student wrote, did you ever eat in there? So they used the right past participle, but what was missing? This is wrong. Okay?
Shouldn't be did.
Should be have. Have you ever eaten there? Okay? Good. Number 6. When have you started your new job? Now, yes, there is something wrong with that. Do you remember what it is? Okay? Well, it's here. You cannot use when with the to ask questions in present perfect. If you say when, then it would have to be when did you start your new job? That's a past simple question. When did you start your new job? Right? Or if you want to use present perfect, then you can't use when. You could only say, have you started your new job? Okay? That's it. If you want to know when, you're going to have to change that question into a past simple question. All right? That's it. So if you started it here and you don't ask when, then of course it should be with a capital letter. Have you started your new job? Okay? And the person says, yes, I have. Then you can ask them, when did you start? Okay? So sometimes we move on, right? We start in one tense, we go on to another tense. That's completely fine. Okay? All right? Now, here's another mistake. This one has to do with tense. The tense itself is wrong, but why? Number 7, we have visited them yesterday. What's wrong with that? You know by now. All right? So, what happened again? What did the student write yesterday? When is yesterday? Is it a finished time or an unfinished time? It's a finished time, right? So, can we use present perfect with finished times? No. We can only use unfinished times, right? So that's a common mistake. So the way we can correct this is in 2 ways. We could either take out the present perfect tense altogether and just make it into a past simple sentence. We visited them yesterday. That's okay. Past simple. You can definitely use all of those past time markers, or you'd have to say we have visited them. Okay? Without saying yesterday. So let's do that. We'll just say we have visited them, or we visited them recently, or we visited them this week, this month, this year. That's all okay, because it's an unfinished time.
Good.
Next, a lot of times there are pronunciation errors which unfortunately can end up sounding like it's a grammar error. Okay? Let me show you what I mean. So, here I've written it correctly, but I'm going to show you what sometimes happens when students are pronouncing it. So they might say something like this. They know the truth for a long time. So what happened here? In this case, the student didn't say this part fully to the end. So it sounded like they known, even though the student might actually know they've known, but they didn't say the ending, and so it doesn't. Other people don't hear it, and it sounds like a grammar mistake. Okay? So make sure you say they've. Also, sometimes the mistake is not at this end, but at this end. So sometimes people say they've known the truth for a long time because they're trying to speak fast, but don't try to speak fast necessarily. Try to speak accurately and clearly. They've known. Not they've known. They've known. Okay? They've known. It's okay.
Take your time.
Say the endings very clearly, and especially when you know the grammar. You want to make sure that everybody can hear your clear, correct English sentences. All right? The same thing here. This sentence is supposed to be she's broken her arm. She's broken her arm. But sometimes when people are saying it, they might say something like she broken her arm. So there what happened? Didn't hear the S. You want to say she's okay? Or sometimes again, the ending here is left off. She's broke her arm. No. She's broken her arm. Okay? So make sure you're saying all of the endings correctly, especially in the grammatical part of the sentence. All right? Good for you. And, of course, with the short answer, let's do one of those. Have you checked your lottery ticket? And the person answered, yes, I've. That's wrong. You know what the right answer is. It cannot be this. Why? Because we cannot make a contraction of that short answer. What do we need to say? Yes, I have. Okay, that's it. All right? So these are some of the common mistakes that you want to make sure that you avoid when you're using the present perfect tense. Now, let's review. So you know the present perfect tense when you can make what? A positive sentence, a negative sentence, and a question, using both regular verbs and irregular verbs. For example, they have planned the party. Positive, they haven't planned the party. A negative sentence, have they planned the party? A question. Or with the irregular verb, she has written an essay. The negative sentence, she hasn't written an essay. The question, has she written an essay? Okay, when you can do this easily and comfortably, then you've got it. You've got this tense. And congratulations on reaching this level. As soon as you start using the present perfect tense in conversation and writing, immediately it's obvious to everyone that you're writing and communicating at a much higher level. Okay? So, congratulations on that. Where do you go from here? Well, practice it, right? Either say or write some sentences about your life. What have you done recently? What have you watched? What have you read? What have you learned? Okay? When you can write some sentences about yourself, it becomes more personal and meaningful, and you will remember it more easily. Okay? Then when you're ready, you can go on to watch the next lesson in this series. And if you'd like a little more practice on this one, the present perfect, then go to www.engvid.com/engvid where you can do a quiz. Thanks very much for watching.